3000.
Right. What is doing? My name's Maloney. This is the 3000 podcast. I'm joined today by a musician, a rapper, an ice bath enthusiast. Dooz, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, brother. Pleasure as always. Since last time I was in here, it's nice to be back.
Man, and you're back now. You're back in Melbourne. Is it more of a permanent sort of thing now?
Yeah, it is for now. The journey I've been away has served its purpose for now, and I'm coming back, and yeah, with a bit of an intention, and we'll just see what the future holds.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so we'll try and start sort of from the start. I know that you are a Melbourne boy, but you weren't born in Melbourne. Do you want to tell us a bit about your early years?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Ireland, in Dublin. So I was born in Dublin, grew up in both parents are Irish. I mean, all my family's Irish. They're from Cork and Mayo. I was in Ireland till I was 8. Lived in a little town called Leixlip, like 45 minutes out of Dublin. Pretty rural and, yeah, cold and Irish and green, as you'd imagine. So a few years of school there, and then came over to Oz. Mm-hmm. So moved to Frankston when I was 8, and that was
it.
That was it.
It's obviously a big sea change from country Ireland to beachside Franger.
For sure. Yeah, man. Like I was blown away when I came to Australia. In Ireland, like obviously the culture is completely different. At school, I've spoke about it before. I couldn't even run around in the playground. Like there's just asphalt and it's cold all the time. Like I know it's cold in Melbourne, but freezing. Most of the year it's raining constantly. Nowhere near as much lifestyle and outdoor activities and stuff like that like there is here. Yep. So I moved here and I was just blown away by like the opportunity. You know what I mean? I was real into music, real into art from young. Like I was, making music. Well, when did I get here? I've done music my whole life pretty much. Like I was here, I was like the only one with an accent, you know what I mean, at school. Been listening to hip hop since I was 5, since as soon as I could listen to music and understand what English was.
Yeah. Was that even like an option in Ireland to make music? Like obviously you've got your traditional routes of music, but was that something that people did in country Ireland? Like was it?
Yeah, not at my age. Definitely music, but not hip hop. Like it is now. Like there's heaps of people coming up now and doing all different types of hip hop and stuff like that. But when I was young, it's more traditional Irish, Celtic music, fiddle, guitar, singing, storytelling, that sort of stuff. Not that hip hop, it's kind of perfect because hip hop is just storytelling, you know what I mean? And that's what Irish culture is based on is poetry, it's storytelling, good times, bad times, pain, sorrow, relating. So, I could always speak fluently and I could articulate stuff when I was really young. Like when I was a kid, when I was like 2, what was my old man telling me? 1 or 2 years old, I'd be saying stuff and people would be like, did he just say that? Like a little baby? You know what I mean? So, I always listened to hip hop and music in general. I was surrounded by music by the time I got to Australia.
And your accent, obviously, in the schoolyard when you get over here sets you apart as well. So that's a point of difference straight away too.
100%, man. So, I was exactly like I felt like there was a light shined on me all the time. Like for that and then also for talking and being disruptive and stuff in school. So I don't know if you want to talk about that or how I got into music or just flow.
Yeah, whatever, man. Like you're obviously you're a different kid, you know.
Exactly.
You look the same as all the other kids, but you sound a little bit different and you got a different backstory.
For sure. So got here, was definitely sounding different, was being disruptive and sort of in the light a bit. And I started writing raps and expressing sort of how I was feeling then and listening to different music and I was introduced to graffiti as well. Pretty much, what would I have been? A couple of years after getting here, my uncle is a writer from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And I was like never really, I wasn't interested in school at all. You know what I mean? Like I was always interested in music. I was always interested in art, and no one in my family were musicians, you know what I mean, or anything in that pathway. So I didn't think, oh, that's a possibility, you know what I mean?
Yep.
But I was super interested in it. So yeah, my uncle, I was writing music, I was recording music. Like there's videos of me when I was like 8 years old, rapping to the camera, you know, going around Frankston with a VCR camera, interviewing people, you know, like always engaging with art and music in some way, you know?
Did your uncle school you on like the elements of hip hop and that sort of thing if he's got the writer background?
Bro, not at all. Not
Really?
with hip hop. No, with Graff for sure. Like he was like, yep, come down. So I met a lot of the older Frankston crews that you can imagine. Real young, I'd go to the walls and seeing them paint, and I was like, this is what's up. Like this is mad. You know what I mean? But no, it was honestly luck that I was interested in hip hop, and then that I had him with Graffiti. You know, it was like it's just by fate or chance that happened. So yeah, I was going down to the walls, watching them paint, learning about painting with him, and I was sketching in my books at school. This is in primary school now, probably year 4, 5. Started meeting other people that were doing graphs.
So
started
you're little,
bonding.
man. You're little.
Oh, little. Yeah, 100%. Like, I did my first piece when I think I was 11.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 11. Down at Seaford Walls, I was watching Saipan and my uncle and a few of those dudes doing a piece, and I was getting their cans and going over to there's actually a song coming telling this story about this whole time. But yeah, I was like going over to the factory wall and doing little throwies and tags and just seeing what was up, hearing stories of them. I remember Flirt came down to that wall that day, and yeah, I loved it. I was out bombing on my own, and I just thought...
At 11 years old?
Yeah, at 11.
Wow.
And that seemed normal to me, you know what I mean? Because there's people in my family doing it, and I was already interested in it. And then whether I realised it or not, I was obsessed with it, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I was doing a lot of sport as well, but I was, getting more and more interested in graph and meeting more people that were doing graph. And
were people... Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, you're right.
If you're 11 years old...
Yep.
And you're meeting people that are involved in it, are they taking you serious? Are they trying to show you the way? Like, it's a pretty, like, it's a young man's sort of sport, I can imagine, but 11's young.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because they were, you know what I mean? Say, how old would they have been? 50? They would have been 20 years older than me, you know what I mean? So I'm 11 and they're 31. So there was that little bit of age difference where they weren't young enough to take me out at night and like be like, this is the way, but they were old enough for me to go to a day wall and see what was up. So I was kind of just going out and doing my own thing and, you know, bombing in the area and sneaking out of my house and shit like that and doing throwies and seeing like all different, you know, pieces and words that were around Frankston at the time, because obviously I wasn't leaving Frankston. I was only on my 2 feet and a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So I was going around and seeing, just all sorts of local stuff. Like I remember Coast and Yogi and other dudes like that all around Frankston, and just sort of like, observing that and going out like that, because I was still in primary school. Obviously, I didn't have much.
It's crazy, man. Did you ever meet dudes and you were like, hey, this is what I write? And they're like, you can't do that. You're like, you're only fucking primary school kid, man.
No, not yet. More when I went to high school and started getting a little bit older, you start running into that sort of shit. But not when I was that young.
And you've been thrown into a pretty good cultural hub if you're into that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you could have, I'm guessing, landed anywhere when you've come from the other side of the world.
For sure.
And I guess it helps when your uncle's sort of within that scene.
Yep.
So you sort of had a good entree into that whole fucking culture.
100%. And it was like a combination of being at school and not feeling at all connected to anything there, being ostracized for speaking and just being told, you know, you're no good. You're no good. And I'm like, all right, well, fuck that. This is what feels good. I'm going to do that. Then basically started meeting people. Where did I start meeting people? At parties and shit in the area. You know what I mean? And they're like, they're writing a bit. And there's a difference between, you know, the dude who's doing a tag in like an alleyway who's just young. And then, you meet dudes who are like, nah, this is what's up. You know what I mean? So then I started meeting dudes all around Frankston, Carrum Downs, all the local area from different schools and shit who are that little bit more interested in it than every other kid, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then we started watching videos online, like there was The Show Must Go On, Get Hectic, and Interrail was out at that point, so there was movies coming out on YouTube, there was all the old magazines like Death From Above, obviously all the local influence, and then it just started to snowball from there.
Yeah. And I'm guessing at these parties you're starting to freestyle and that sort of thing, and that's putting you on the map a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah, but bro, to be honest, Graff was always the epicenter of what I was doing. Hip hop didn't come in till later.
Right.
Because I don't know why it didn't. Like, I guess you can be shy. Do you know what I mean? When you're younger, I was like maybe a little bit insecure about rapping. I would freestyle all the time. Every party we'd go to, I'd freestyle.
Was it because of your accent maybe? Or
nah, accent was dying out at this stage.
Yep,
it wasn't because of that. I was freestyling everywhere, but I wasn't recording anything. Bro, to be honest, there was no one recording hip hop around me at all. I didn't even think that was a thing. You know what I mean? Like the older dudes who were doing graph that I knew were in punk bands and shit like that. Like, I guess, you know, when you haven't done something and you don't have people around you doing it, it seems out of reach. You know what I mean? And like, I was more focused on the art and graph and just freestyled all the time and never thought that was something that I could do. You know what I mean?
Because of your generation, though, you're a bit younger. You've got the internet there, and also you're probably seeing some more mainstream Aussie hip hop acts out there as well you can look up to.
For sure. Yeah, you're right. I don't know, bro. I don't know how it didn't come around. Like at that time, Dr. Flea was huge. Son of Sam were massive from what I was seeing. I grew up listening to Horror Show, Bliss and SO, Fundamentals, all of them. But then as I started to get more into graph, like obviously Flea and Sunner and that were talking about stuff that I was doing. So I was listening to that. But yeah, I don't know, bro. I was more focused on graph. You know what I mean? So yeah, that was what it was in the early years. But I was freestyling constantly, like everywhere we'd go, because I could freestyle well. We'd be at a party and I'd just freestyle about what we were doing, and people would be like, you've got to do something with that. You've got to do something with that. We'd be at a pub and I'd freestyle to the whole courtyard, and they'd be like, where can I listen to something? You know what I mean? And I'd be like, I haven't made anything. You're like, you need to do, people always said that, but I don't know, bro. I had a weird mind frame with like, nah, I'm just going to keep it to freestyling. You know what I mean? I don't need to write shit, like just young and dumb sort of head state, you know?
So then eventually you've got to get to the point where you're writing lyrics down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a whole graph. The whole graph time was before that, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like before music came, graph was sort of dedicated to that and traveling doing that, and a lot of time was focused on doing that.
Do you want to talk about graph? People are a bit touchy about talking about, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, yeah, I don't give a fuck. Okay. I'm happy to talk about it. Yeah, like I'm not saying anything about myself, but there was definitely what was happening around me. So yeah, dudes were getting a lot more into it, and yeah, the scene was popping off in Frankston back then. This is like sort of 2012, 2013.
Was it? And the Obes store was around that time?
Exactly. All that was happening. So that's what I mean. I know there's a lot of rap crews that were coming out of Frankston before and around then, but there wasn't many happening in Frankston at that time. But there was a lot of graph stores. There was a lot of stuff happening around graffiti. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was also generations just before me that had been still doing stuff, and you're bumping into people in the street and shit like that. So yeah, started getting more into that, and then getting closer to the dudes that were also interested in it, and yeah, just sort of progressed from there. Dudes started doing panels, and yeah, I'm not going to go too far into it, but yeah, it was a very, very active time for that area, and some of the most prolific writers out of my generation, you know, came out of that time. So
what do you think that the Obese store there in Frankston was a bit ahead of its time, or just the wrong place? Right, wrong time, right place, that sort of thing?
Yeah, bro. I don't know. It's same as State of the Art. I don't know if you remember State of the Art. That was another graph shop that opened.
Yeah.
Legend who owns that. And I don't know what it is, man. It's like, I suppose it is the end of the line. It's an isolated area. Like maybe they just weren't getting enough business. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's a city, even though the culture was thriving. Apparently the cops shut that down anyway. I don't know. I don't know too much about that, but my mate Vacay, who I'm doing an album with, said a line where the cops were setting up underage people to go in there and buy shit, so that
that is a fun. That law only must have come in around about that time that you had to be 18 to buy paint.
Yeah. So yeah, they apparently shut that down, but I don't know exactly. There was all that going on, so it's the culture was thriving in the area, and I think that's why they probably opened an Obese at that time.
Yeah, I feel like it might have been a little bit ahead of its time.
Yeah,
maybe.
for sure. But although I don't know, like ahead of its time, like I don't know if it's even thriving as much as it is now in Franga compared to it was back then, you know?
But online I think a lot of people buy their supplies online now,
Yeah, okay.
and that was happening back then, but I don't think it was as
Nowhere
prevalent.
near as much.
No.
Nowhere near as much. Yeah, for sure. And as you said before with the internet was a small, like it was happening, but none of us had Insta. No one was sitting around on their phones. No one was scrolling. There was none of that. I feel like we were the last generation to sort of be way more engaged in real life than this generation. You know what I mean?
But Instagram has its negatives, but it
Yeah.
is awesome. Like, I think it's pushed that art form immensely.
For sure.
And it connects everybody. Like, everyone talks through it.
100%.
It's great like that. And it's changed the way that graffiti's evolved.
For sure. I agree with you. And yeah, I'm not 100%. I'm not putting it down. And, you know, things evolve, and I'm not going to be one of those people who sits there and goes, oh, you know, back in the day, this and that. But I do feel like there's a lot of time wasted on just sitting on it and like making it look like you're doing more stuff than you are and shit like that. Like, the amount of stuff that was done at that time, like, I mean, people will never know about, you know what I mean? Because it was never posted, and I don't know, maybe in magazines and stuff like that it'll be brought out. But yeah, it was a good time.
That's definitely a positive from that, all that sort of stuff, is that people that aren't even doing the work, someone else is documenting it for
sure.
you. And that is a great thing, when other people might have taken flicks and had photo albums that you could show your mates, but there was no way to really put it out there to the greater masses.
For sure.
So it's good in that respect.
Yeah, for sure, man. So yeah, that was happening in Obese. And then, yeah, graffiti, like the dudes around me that were, you know, I was active, but there was dudes around me that were unbelievably active, you know what I mean?
But
like,
they're a bit older as well.
well, only a couple of years.
Yep.
Like, that's what I mean. Like Bully, who recently passed away, was, you know, he'd done 100 panels before we were 18 years old.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, I literally remember sitting at Anchor's house in Frankston and looking through his USBs. This is honest truth. And we counted like 103 panels before 18. Like, that's what I mean. There's the way that I see it as is like, to me, graph's an extreme sport. No different from surfing or skateboarding, or the only thing is it's illegal. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like any extreme sport, people come through and they're just the trailblazers of that generation. Like, you have a crazy skateboarder like the, what are the brothers in that doco?
Yeah, the
All this
Pappas
mayhem.
brothers.
Pappas brothers, you know what I mean? You've got, what is it, Hand of God, those two brothers, Andy Irons for the surfing. People come through who are just insanely, for whatever reason, devoted to whatever that sport is. And Bully was, you know, was that for Graph, 100%. Like, I didn't even know how many, he's probably done over 500-600 panels, you know, by the time he passed away, and he's only in his mid-20s, really late 20s. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff getting done, and there was a lot, and then there was older dudes sort of coming in and guiding and mentoring and, you know, traveling interstate and meeting people in other states, and then eventually traveling the world and meeting people all around the world. And yeah, man, it's a mad extreme sport.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I'm not part of it, but I've got a lot of mates that are part of it, and it's awesome that there is like a really cool community that you can travel the world. You'll always find someone to some couch to crash on, and everyone's pretty chill, you know.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, then basically, yeah, I won't go too much into the graph. Then I was about, what was I? I was about, I think I was 20, and I just like, been painting and, you know, taking drugs for a long time, and eventually just got to a point where I was like, yeah, something needs to change. And yeah, I just had this urge and feeling to start writing hip hop. So I was in Black Rock. Shout out to the Black Rock boys, who old mate said that he met them before.
Yeah.
I met him at their joint. They're, legends, bro. And they were, you know, from that scene as well, like punk rockers, about 10 years, 5 years older than me. So sort of around Franga, just before we came up, there was a lot of punk rock and, you know, NoFX and bands like that. I'm sure you might have been familiar with that back then. And, they were mad musicians, and I was at their joint. One of them was a producer. Shout out to Blotto. And I'd go around to theirs all the time. They're always brewing beer and doing all sorts of different shit. And I was like, oh, I want to start rapping, you know what I mean? And he was like, yeah, let's do it. So, yeah, started writing in their started recording in their kitchen in Black Rock.
Yeah.
And, you know, once I set my mind to something, like I really set my mind to it, you know what I mean? So I started doing that, and
you took the graffiti mindset to the music.
Exactly, writing. Yeah. And exactly, like run at it sort of mind state. And bro, just started it was a good period of time because I started then writing about the last sort of 5 to 7 years about things that I've done and experiences that I've had. It's like a lot of people are writing music that all just sounds the same because they're trying to fit in and trying to fucking like that's their journey. I'm not dissing them, but like there's a lot of the same shit, the same beats being made, and I'm happy that I'm just making music and writing stories for what I want to do. I'm not trying to fit into any mold or try and make music to blow up or something like that.
But even at 20 years old, you've had a lot more life experience than most of these other people.
For
and
sure.
I think that when it comes to any sort of art form, and I would say definitely music, that you need to have experience to make it have some sort of fucking... It's got to come from somewhere.
100%, bro. Yeah. I feel the same as what you're saying. And I'm like, I often think, what would have happened if I started writing when I was younger? You know what I mean? And it's like, I would have just been writing the same shit that everyone was writing and like,
It's your life experience.
Exactly, bro.
So
exactly.
you need to get some years of life experience under your belt. You need you need to learn from people. You need to look up to people. You need to figure out, what am I going to write about? Because rap can become very fucking boring and homogenized if it doesn't come from somewhere.
For sure. It's like, what do I want to write about? Not what do I think people want me to write about for me to be able to be viewed in a certain way? You know what I mean? I couldn't give a fuck about any of that. I just want to write what is true to my heart and what I want to express to whoever is listening and the message that I want to get across to them and then the stories that I want to tell to be able to get off my chest. You know what I mean?
So then these dudes have got the music production stuff. So you're not even really starting with like a rinky-dink little system. You're starting recording properly.
It wasn't like a studio. You know what I mean? If you can imagine, I'm standing in a kitchen fucking, there's a mic there with, what did we have, bro? We went to, Blotto's, so much respect for this shit. He had like all pressure piping and he'd made like a booth out of pressure pipe and put blankets over it and... You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a full studio, but it wasn't like, some dodgy little, boom mic in your hand. And so we started there. He had some beats. How did we start? Yeah, he had some beats and I always rapped quick. You know what I mean? I was always like fast freestyling and he was more of a boom bap producer, slow boom bap. And it's like, you just got to try and find your rhythm and find your feet. So I was writing slow songs that I look back on now and I'm like, that's not really, that wasn't really my style and that didn't sound right. But like, as you said before, you got to figure out what works for you.
And you got to work with the beats that you're given.
100%.
If this guy's letting you record in his house, you can't go, man, when you start out your first few, recordings, you can't say, I'm not really feeling this beat.
100%, bro. And as I said, I didn't have anyone around me that that could say, you'd be good spitting on this, you'd be good spitting on that. He was a punkhead, so he was new to recording hip-hop as well. So, he just started giving us beats and what was that? Yeah, I made like a little mixtape on a CD, which was, I can't even remember what they were. Some sort of, some stories. And then, I went on a big trip overseas. And when I was over there, I was kind of like, I want to devote, a lot of time to sort of taking this more serious, not like, this is it, but like put a lot of time into it and start doing shows and.
And so then traveling obviously opens your eyes up. You see that there's a lot more out there and that influences the style of music that you want to make.
100%. Yeah. 100%, bro. Like, I mean, that was when I was 21, but I went on my first overseas trip when I was 19 and like opened my mind to so many things. You're coming from a small place. Obviously, I moved over from Ireland and I had a lot of Irish culture and European culture when I was younger. But going over as like a 19-year-old and having conversations with 30-year-olds who are like, like I've been put down and ostracized in school for so long, and you think you're dumb. You know what I mean? You think, and then I'm going overseas at 19, just out of school and meeting people and they're going, you actually, you know what's up. And like, this is music and just having these different experiences, going to festivals, fucking endless stories, painting with people I've never met who are in their 30s, you know what I mean? And it opens your mind to a whole different world.
And so then you come back and you're like, I'm gonna really sink my teeth in. I'm gonna give this music thing a good crack.
Yep.
And then you start to push the production in a different direction.
For sure. Yeah. So I came back, bro. It was a combination of things. Like I'd been on drugs for a long time. And
do you want it so in graffiti, in that culture, it doesn't get spoken about a lot.
Yep.
But drugs is definitely is something that's there.
100%.
And I think a lot of people might meet other like-minded individuals that have the same sort of likeness for substances.
Yep.
Is that something that you want to sort of elaborate on?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest problem with graffiti in Australia is you've got a bunch of people that come together, like you just said, who usually have a common ground of either being ostracized by a system, coming from low socioeconomic housing, and where the families and parents are all using substances and drinking, and they have no, sort of backbone and spine on how to operate, and then they come together they're coming together for the art, but it gets lost in the drugs. You know what I mean? It gets lost in that, and then anyone I don't know if you have young people listening to your podcast, but it's like you think it's mad when you're 17, 18, 19, and you think it's all good, but I'm telling you, 10 years down the line, you don't understand the sort of outcome that happens from the substance abuse. So that's what the message I want to get across is like, do your art and go hard. Yeah. But drugs is the big, you look at anyone who's done anything in the extreme sports, like I was saying before, rock stars, fucking pop stars, artists, rappers, whatever, their biggest downfall is always drug addiction. You know what I mean? Substance abuse, losing your mind. And it's like that fine line between recreation, have a good time and explore your mind, and cooking it over time and losing the whole purpose of what you're doing, which is for Graph, what we started saying, is the art, and is putting that time into the art. So, I mean...
I think some people use, from what I can gather, use some drugs within that Graph scene because drugs have... you lose your inhibitions a little bit, you know what I mean? And also keeps you awake, you can go harder. You can go. So some people would think, mate, I need this shit so I can bomb harder, so I can go longer, so I can not give a fuck and get chased by the cops, or that sort of mindset, which is counterproductive in the long run.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, 100%. It's like, it's hard to see into the future, and it's hard to have, a bigger picture on what life's all about, but if you are running the gauntlet like that, you're going to burn out, and your art and whatever your purpose is going to end eventually. So, a lot of us were using drugs from 16 to sort of through to when I'm talking about. But that's probably why the music didn't happen as well in those early years. You know what I mean? It was kind of just like a lot of partying, a lot of raves, a lot of like going to festivals in the bush and Graph, you know what I mean? So we'd be out at a party, we'd leave at like 1, go and do a panel, and then, it was a lot of painting and a lot of partying happening. That's probably why there was a lot of, to be honest, there was a lot of party music around that time. So there was a lot of DJs and stuff like that. There wasn't much hip hop happening. Yeah. So that's probably another reason why it didn't happen in terms of recording, even though I was freestyling. Yeah. But so went through those years basically, and then I was like, at the same time, simultaneously, I knew when I went overseas, I was like, I need to clear my mind out, and I want to dedicate time to recording and making music, you know what I mean? And I knew that wasn't possible with the head state that I was in. Yeah.
So but you kind of needed to go through this so then you could get to that point. 100%. Do you know what I mean? So you needed to sort of have that experience to figure it out, and then,
100%, bro. And I agree. And it's like you need to go through stuff to come out the other side. But the thing is that people need to understand, I've got so many mates who have died. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you need to have those experiences, but you need to know when you're at this crossroad where you're going to, you know what I mean? You can turn it around in your 30s, whatever, but you can get to a point where you're going to die, bro. You know what I mean? And it's like, I've seen people die, and I've seen exactly the decisions that it takes to get to that point, bro. And that's why I'm passionate about, speaking to the things that I do and saying the message that I say, because I've seen what happens when you don't have a backbone and people around you to influence you, bro.
Yeah, and also aside from the substances, mental health is a big issue in society in general.
For sure.
But it's something that probably until recently has never really been spoken about within the graffiti culture. And it's good that there is a way for people to have a chat about that sort of stuff now.
For sure.
I think in the past it might have been shown as a bit of a sign of weakness. For
sure.
But if you're in trouble, you just got to talk to somebody.
Yeah. I mean, bro, like at the end of the day, like what you said, it's a sign of weakness. What I've learnt is, and what I know is all these people that are being hard and all these dudes that are fucking mad cunts and staunch and all that, you know what I mean? At the core of who they are, they're not happy. You know what I mean? So ultimately, you can say someone's weak for speaking. You can say whatever you want, but at the end of the day, who in life doesn't want peace, bro? Who in life doesn't want to be happy? Really, truly, if you're human, that's what you're looking for. You know what I mean? So people can be afraid of speaking out or whatever, like you just said, but at the end of the day, the only person that's suffering is yourself. So yeah, it is mad that that's being spoken about, and like people could judge me for speaking out about it or singing about it or rapping about it or telling stories. I don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? Because I know on the other hand, there's a whole bunch of people that message me, and there's a whole bunch of people that I meet at shows, and there's a whole bunch of people that say, you don't understand how much this has helped me. And a lot of them don't have figures, you know, strong male figures in their life. Their dad's on the piss, their dad's on the pipe, their dad's, you know, on the meds, like he's not there, whatever. So it's a community for a reason, you know what I mean? You want to bring each other up, not just continue to push each other down and fucking smother each other in the dirt, you know?
Yeah.
So
no, it's that old sort of cliche, but if it helps just one person, it's worth talking
100%,
about.
100%, bro.
You know?
100%. And that's what I mean is when you don't meet someone and you don't know them, it's easy to judge them. So people could listen to what I'm saying and think a million things. But if I know what my intention is and what I'm speaking about, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. So yeah, basically decided that, I wanted to clean the act up and do music seriously. And I knew that I had a sort of gift for freestyling always and speaking. So yeah, where did I start recording? Oh yeah. I shot a video for an old song and I went to a party for this video producer's house for his birthday or something like that in Brunswick, and there was this Chilean guy there, Juan from Pirate Ska Rebellion. It's like a ska reggae band. Yeah, he's a mad dog. Shout out to Juan. And he was sitting on the couch and he was smoking a doobie, and he's like, man, you got to meet DJ Deno, man. He's like, he's the hip hop guru of Melbourne. He's like, I'm telling you, he's the man. And I was like, sweet. If someone gives me a tip like that, I'll always act on it straight away. You know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, give me his contact. And he's like, all right. And then I messaged him that night and was like, hey, bro, I've just met Juan. You know, can we meet up? And he's like, yeah, come to my studio. I got a studio in Pascoe. So his name's Den Bryonic Productions. Deno, anyone in the hip-hop scene of Melbourne will know him. You know what I mean? He's done hundreds of shows. He's worked with all international artists. And, bro, he's just a G. He's so connected, you know what I mean, to the scene, and he's just a G of a person who puts in so much of his time and life into helping people create music and helping people express and having a space for people to go to. Like, at that time, I couldn't be around the people I was hanging out with. Do you know what I mean?
Because you went cold turkey?
I was going cold turkey, but I was up and down. Do you know what I mean? So I was off and on, and I knew,
the booze and everything.
Yeah. I was trying to, but I was, as I said, if I was going back in those environments, you know, you lose control and blah blah blah. So when I got in contact with him, it's Pascoe, so it'd take me an hour to drive there, and I was going there all the time. So it was giving me a space to create, and it was also giving me a space to go to and have a conversation with a 40-year-old man who's, you know, seen the whole of life. So I went to Den Bryonic studio and started working on my first album, which was Deep Thoughts, True Stories. And he's just a G, man.
And he sort of helped you, schooled you in the process of like, let's make an album rather than just put out a song here and there.
Yeah.
Like, was he pushing for that? Because a lot of people at this point in time, they're not making albums like traditional albums.
100%, because everyone's trying to blow up and shit on TikTok and whatever. So the whole reason I make music is, and that's their journey, and they'll probably realize that when they're a bit older or whatever, but my whole reason I make music is to tell a story. You know what I mean? So I think it might have been Deno. I can't really remember, but oh, sorry, bro. But he was like, I remember going there, recording a song, and he was like, this is mad. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He was like, this is really good.
Are you pushing the beats in the direction you want to be in at this stage? Or
bro, I was experimenting hardcore. So I was like going more into grimy kind of hard bass, and bro, I was working with all different kinds of energy of music. Like, I understand when I hear a beat, I feel like I can understand how I need to spit on it and what sort of energy that it needs. And like, if I'm trying to tell a story, there can be an aggressive one, there can be a sad one, happy, whatever it is. I need to find the beat that can make the person feel that before I even speak. You know what I mean? So I was going to him with all different types of stories of stuff that was happening in that at that time and stuff that had happened before. So like Summer Breeze is one of my biggest tracks. It's a graph song that's real hard, real fast, kind of like drilly, kind of not drilly, but no, it wasn't even drill. It was like trap kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know, trappy kind of, but high BPMs. You know what I mean? And just experimenting with. That's when I started finding faster spitting stuff, and I saw the album start to formulate. Started doing shows and training heaps and just fully taking control of my life. You know what I mean? Basically.
Yeah. I think there's no coincidence that people that get off substances throw themselves wholeheartedly into something else
100%,
because they have that mentality already, but you kind of got to keep your mind active and you've got to go all in basically.
Bro, because it's funny, what I've realized is the people who are doing that have so much potential for something. Do you know what I mean? They got so much potential. It's usually, you think about it, right? A schooling system is developed for a certain type of person in mind that is gonna go into academia and go and pursue those things, right? Then you have artistic, creative, out of the box, hyperactive, ADHD, ADD, whatever they want to label you as, people with a fuckload of energy and potential that then goes through the crack and you think you have no potential. Do you know what I mean? So you take up drugs and you're channeling all your energy into whatever it is.
Yeah.
If you find something that aligns with whatever your potential is, like whether it's speaking, it could be building, whatever art, drawing, whatever it is, you'll hammer at that. And there's a reason why people with that sort of energy end up killing it and excelling. So exactly what you said. Once I cleared my mind and started to do stuff, you build strength. You know what I mean? You get off that, which just weakens you, and then you start training, you start meeting other people who are in the scene or people who are, stronger, older people who can set an example, and then you become stronger and develop, slowly. Yeah. So it's a slow process, but it does snowball if you just continue to go at it.
Yeah, exactly, man. And I think that there needs to be more specialised schools to what you were saying, because not only do kids slip through the cracks, but anybody who thinks outside the box is just told they're a troublemaker and they get removed.
100, bro.
And I know so many people that were shit at school that have ended up being really, really successful. Yep. And school's not for everybody, but kids can't even leave until they're 16. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome that dudes are taking on trades and stuff earlier now. Yeah. But there needs to be the school system. It's not quite right.
For sure. And then it's like some dudes who end up being tradies just because they don't know what to do right? Yeah. It's like they aren't meant to be tradies because they're not. That's probably not what their gift is. But they are, because it's like, oh, you just go do a trade because you don't know what to do.
I don't want to sit in front of a computer, so I'll become a fucking chippy.
Right. Yeah. And what you were saying there, it's like there is specialized schools, but it's if you got $100,000 a year to pay for your kid to go to. You know what I mean? Like Steiner and shit like that. So you've got. Yeah, heaps of people in low socioeconomic areas that end up doing stuff that they don't even like because they don't know the opportunities there.
Yeah.
So
hopefully with the internet, this sort of changes and people can see a lot more. And I think that's what's changing from this generation.
For sure. I think people have way more access to. You have way more access now, if you want to people with messages that are expanding your mind. You know what I mean? Like. When when I was younger, there wasn't that. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't any video or person you could listen to a weekly podcast who's, got a message of these wisdom bombs that you can use in your life. You know what I mean? So, you're right. There isn't enough of that, but I'm sure.
Hopefully it's changing. Sorry, we went on a bit of a tangent, but let's get back to the music. So you're making the album with Denim, yeah?
Yeah. So, I was fucking streamline focus. And I was training heaps, training martial arts and writing music all the time. And just feeling G'd up, you know what I mean? So started doing shows. What happened? Oh yeah, did my first show. I can't remember what the venue was. It was somewhere in Brunswick or Fitzroy Street near Laundry. And bro, it was huge. It was hectic. So I'd planned this set with the songs. The album wasn't out yet, but I'd written a lot of the songs, and I just planned to drop a heavy drum and bass track at the end of it to create like a mad mosh atmosphere, you know what I mean? Like a metal mosh, but with drum and bass. And no one was really doing that. So I thought it'd be mad, and it went off. Like, we did I think I had middle set or something in this venue, and I've got a video of it. I'll send it to you.
Yeah, awesome.
And the set went well, and then I just dropped the mic and put on this D&B track, and the whole venue erupted and just started moshing, and it was mental. And bro, so that was like 2019, and then was doing then I just started getting shows after shows after shows. Obviously, I met Dan Browning Productions. He was linking me up to another show. And then what happened? There was the bushfires was that the start of 2020? Yeah, it was. It was the start of 2020, end of 2019.
End of 2019.
And we threw a massive, Deno threw a massive show for that, Bars for Bushfires, I think it was called. And it was huge, massive lineup. I think there was 50 plus artists at Laundry Bar all day. And we did a show that day, and it went off again. There was another guy in the crowd who was like, yo, do you want to gig here? And it just started to go real well. Then bang, COVID.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So COVID came and just put all that to a stop.
Yeah.
And
all the momentum you built is just
fully. But I'm not it is what it is. And I'm also happy that time came because I had an opportunity to go away and just continue to work away at my mind and continue to work on music and not be, it sucks that everyone was locked down, but not be locked down, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So that year, 2020, COVID came and I was working on the album and I was like, fuck, I'm not going to not drop it now because of COVID, you know what I mean? So I dropped it at the end of 2020 in December 17th. And I'd moved away by that point. But it went well. I couldn't do any shows or anything like that, but that was mad to drop the collection of work and vinyl and merch and all that sort of stuff.
And it feels like it's a little bit of a bookmark. You've
100%.
You've sort of banged that out and you can put it out there.
Yeah. And I'm still happy with that now. You know what I mean? I listen to it now and I'm like, I'm happy with all the songs on that. And I know if you do listen to them, there's so much variety. I still enjoy that album now.
And then I'm guessing this is around about the time that you sort of think, well, maybe you should start the podcast?
Yeah. So, what happened, bro? I'd moved away and I was like, all right, I'm just going to continue to figure out what this is all about. You know what I mean? What life's all about for me. Mm-hmm. What do I want to do in this life? And
so you're up north?
I'm up north, yeah. My mate bought a house up north and basically just said, look, let's get out. I was getting pulled over on the way to work by cops and asked, for this and that. And I knew that I wanted to continue to explore in the stuff I've been talking about and training and all that sort of stuff. And not a lot of people around me were doing that. And he was. So he was like, bro, let's just run the gauntlet and see what happens. And I was like, let's go. So we moved up to his joint. It was out in the bush up in Agnes Water. And bro, just started training and doing courses, reading a lot, listening to a lot of podcasts, listening to a lot of audiobooks. Spending time out in Australia. Melbourne's great, but it's like I moved to Australia from Ireland thinking palm trees and beaches and surfing, and there's none of that. There is down the peninsula, but, my family didn't do any of that. And I got up there and I was like, oh, this is what it's like. This
is what's on the postcards.
This is what the postcards are like, bro. So I was living up there and, bro, I was literally standing in the house he has is like a barn up there out in the middle of like a national park. And the podcast came to my head. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, mad. Like, that's a good idea. And, you get heaps of ideas, but some of them seem achievable and some are better ideas than others, Yeah. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do this podcast. And it was a combination of things, bro. Like, I chose to go deeper down this path of changing my mind and training and figuring out what it's about. And I'd seen all the boys that didn't, what was happening, dying. You know what I mean? So 2021, Heel died and another mate died. And I was like, something needs to happen here. You know what I mean? Like, there is another way that people can't see. So, I thought I've got mates in a lot of different environments, you know what I mean? Whether it's graph, whether it's like whatever, training, like teaching, all sorts of different avenues. And I was like, thinking about the conversations that I have, and I was like, how mad would it be for all those different types of people to be able to listen to what all these other people are up to?
Yep.
So, I got that idea and then bought the podcast gear and, started it. But as you know, it's a lot of fucking work to do a podcast and to
It's a grind, yeah.
grind, bro.
Yeah.
And
There's so much behind the scenes that people
Yeah.
don't really notice, and just like teeing up guests and making sure everything's planned out, and
Yeah.
you know, you got to break people's balls, and they want to
100%.
do it, but then you've got to sort of push them. There's a whole lot that goes on behind the scenes.
100%. And the writing the questions, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know how much you write, but planning, you have to plan it. You're the one you're the master of the ceremony when we're sitting here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You got to plan which direction it's going to head in. Editing, I don't know if you're doing all that, but
Doing
the
everything,
editing of the episodes, the video, all that, and it's fucking great. I think podcasts are one of the best things ever, and I would love to be able to redo that if I was settled somewhere. But at the time, I was traveling still, and I was on the road, and you know, doing all this different shit. So I realized quickly how hard it was. You know,
And I guess at that point in time, people are consuming a lot of digital content because they're all stuck at home.
For sure.
So the timing from that respect is good, but then
Yeah.
you've got to do everything remotely, which makes it hard as well.
100%. Yeah, it was good, bro. People fucking loved it, and I loved doing it, bro. I loved sitting down with someone, not knowing what was going to happen, and then having a yarn and speaking to. I know how inspirational it is hearing people that you look up to in a chosen thing, whether it's graph or whatever, hearing their story and the stories of what it's just motivating, bro. You know what I mean? Like the amount of kids that, you know, went up to Ulsa when he's doing walls now who are like 12, 13 and like, oh, this got me off my phone and got me out painting the walls. You know what I mean? It's mad. So yeah, it was really good interviewing the people that I did and getting the backstories on them. And it's something that I'd love to do again. And it may be something that I'd pick back up once I'm settled. You know what I mean?
Totally. It's like with this, I find that I talk to so many people that I know pretty well, but then you sit down and have a chat with them and you find out a lot of stuff you didn't know.
100%, bro.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I mean. Everyone's got a backstory. And yeah, people are usually pretty interesting, you know what I mean, who are doing art and shit like that. And I think if you can take, if the reason I really made it as well is like people are my biggest teacher, obviously. And like people from all different walks of life.
Yep.
And if you can listen to how they got from here to there, it doesn't matter who they are only a human. And if you can apply whatever they've done and just take bits and pieces from everyone, you can put it towards whatever you're trying to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I find it really interesting that so many people that are probably the most interesting individuals think like, oh, but what will we talk about? And you're like, man, you've got heaps to fucking talk about. Did you cop that a lot?
100%. Yeah, bro. 100%. They're like, exactly.
No one wants to hear, and you're like, yeah, they do.
No one wants to hear it. It's like 100% they do, bro. Because
Yeah.
there's, hundreds or thousands of people who are interested in the same shit as you are. It's like, you never realize how many people think the same as you do. It's like there's a podcast called Angel and Z podcast. It's called Living Proof New
just
York.
changed it,
Have you listened to him?
Yeah, so Danny got me onto that.
Danny did, he got me onto it as well. So
he's doing his job for them. He's promoting it well.
is he? Wait, who is? Oh, yeah,
Danny,
he is.
he's got 2 people.
100%, bro. So I interviewed him when we did that podcast, and he was like, bro, have you listened to this? And I was like, no. And he's like, they're doing a very similar thing to you are, and they're the same age and everything. And I looked at their thing and I was like,
and they train and do all that sort of shit.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah.
It blew my mind. I was like, what do you mean? Like, so if they're blowing my mind, how many minds can you blow with just doing something that you think no one will care about? You know what I mean?
Even on a much smaller scale, it's awesome because of the internet now.
Yep.
I got a dude messaged me the other day. He's from Christchurch. He's like,
Mad.
so there's people we're watching all these graph videos in Christchurch. You're like, that's so cool that things can fucking with the internet. People can watch shit from all over the world.
100%, bro.
And starting that podcast must have been a big sort of like. I remember you said to me early days, you're like, man, I had to almost stop it because it was becoming too big and getting in the way of what you really wanted to do with the music.
100%, bro. It was. And it was getting big, and also, like I said, bro, it's so much work. So I wasn't writing any music at all. And, you know, I like doing shows and I like writing stories and I like making music. I love going to the studio. I love all of that. And I was like, fuck, I just didn't know how long these episodes would take and how much preparation goes into it and looking into who needs to be interviewed and all that. But yeah, it did. It went big and people were loving it. And and then after that, I just continued working on the mixtape that I just dropped then till now. December 17th I dropped that, so it was exactly 3 years after the first album. And basically that was just the whole time period of leaving Melbourne to this point now, basically. And podcast time included.
Yeah, well, a lot happened in the world in that period.
100%, bro.
Yeah. So do you think now the music and live shows is the direction you want to go in?
Yeah.
That's your primary focus?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, the mixtape that I worked on was more just a personal kind of, yeah, I mean, I like the songs that are on it, but it was more just a personal storytelling thing. But yeah, next year I've got a full studio album coming out it's a collaborative album with Vacay, who's my best mate. And yeah, working a lot with Owen Eka and Eski, and planning a lot of shows and starting to get shows at festivals. And yeah, there's this album that we're pretty much done, which I think is going to go really well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So as someone who doesn't write music or anything, how do you go by when you have a project, pick the song that you want to film a clip for, or that you want to push more than others, you know?
Yep.
And I guess sometimes that song may not be the one that resonates with people.
100%, bro. I think, yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a combination of things of how much do you like the song? How much will other people like the song? How good really is the song? And what kind of video could you shoot for it? You know what I mean? Like, if I think about, sometimes for me, it's like a lot of people are super analytical. For me, names come like that. You know what I mean? The choice like that comes like that for me. Okay. I don't overthink that sort of stuff. It's a blessing, I think, because a lot of people overthink stuff where they don't even release shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they do their own head.
They do their own head in, bro. And I'm like, for me, that's where it's like what other people think comes in too much. And I think you got to just fucking bite the bullet and put it out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's like you really just got to listen through to the songs a lot of times and be like, to be honest, in a collection of music, often they'll shine out. The songs will just shine out more than the other ones. It's like in this mixtape I just did. What did we do? Oh yeah, I did a video for Divine Feminine, which is one of the best songs in the mixtape. Then Til Now, which is a drum and bass song, which I chose because it's a different.
Shows diversity.
It's just diversity. And then Above the Clouds, which is with Vacay, which is a very important song for his mum who passed away, and Anka, who I was talking about in 2021, who passed away.
Do you often, most of your tracks feature other people and you work with people, and that's really cool. Do you find that's part of the process for you to work with other people rather than just do it as like a solo, even though you're a solo artist, do it like a solo sort of thing? Yeah.
So my first album was a lot of solo stuff. And I think that's the reason why, this mixtape is from all different times. And there's a lot of people featured on it. And that's why it's a mixtape. You know what I mean? Like, I think if I listen to a beat and I'm trying to tell a story, and I think the best way that I can get that across is by incorporating this person's energy and sound, whether it's a female or another rapper, then I'm going to do that. And I don't, like, for me, it's a collaborative thing, and it's, everyone can get involved. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's no different to whether it's solo or I think this person should be able to shine on this track as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is there and I'm guessing there's a lot of collaboration coming up on the next album.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's me and Vacay, the whole album. And there's not that much collaboration. It's me and him on every track.
Yep.
But I think we've got a couple of songs where people might be on, but mostly it's just, man, me and him. The beauty about this album and me and him working together is what you were saying at the start, life experience. Me and him were mates, but way before music. You know what I mean? We traveled the world. We've been through ups. We've been through all of life's experiences together. You know what I mean? So this album is funny, serious, ups and downs, all sorts of shit, and it's true stories, and it's pretty unique sort of collection of work. So, yeah.
With releasing stuff in this digital age, do you think it's important to still have the physical copies and that sort of thing, and do the drops, not just release, one track on fucking whatever streaming platform? Do you think it's important to keep that traditional, release?
Bro, I think for sure, especially to support an artist that you believe in, you know what I mean? Like, music to me is one of the most important things in my life and always has been. And like, it's helped open my mind to so much shit. Like when I was a kid listening to certain artists and resonating with what they're saying and being like, oh, I'm not a Fruit Loop. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
This person's literally talking about how I view the world. So if I'm that passionate about the art that someone's creating, the best way to support them is by buying physical merch. You know what I mean? Like you can get a digital version, but it's never going to be as much for the artist. And also it's nice to have that thing and to be able to have it in your room and be able to look at it. And
people can come over and go, oh, you got this.
100%, bro. And it's like the magazines that come with it, the shirts, like you're repping their shirts. Like JK47 just released an album, Revision for Regrowth. I don't know if you've listened to it, but it's mad. And straight away, bang, get his vinyl, read the story about it, get the merch, you know what I mean? Learn about what the cover photo is about. Because every part of what is involved in a project has a little story about it, you know what I mean? So, yeah, man, I think it's mad important. And I think, I mean, look at what Posse Shot's done with that sort of stuff of bringing that back, you know, to this sort of generation and showing people how important it is, you know?
Yeah. What they're doing is obviously it's happening all over the world, but they're building a brand, and I know that sounds really cheesy, but they've got a legion of followers.
100%.
And that's what everyone sort of wants, you know?
Yeah, and that's how you create more culture, and that's how you create more people doing shit in the scene. Do you know what I mean? Like out on the street doing it. It's like if you're gonna make music, go out and do it. Go to places, go to battles, freestyle, record it, go out and do shit. If you're gonna write, go out and paint. Do you know what I mean? Don't just look at it digitally and sit around and look at photos and post shit online. And, you know, I think the way that they're doing it by printing it and having stuff that you can wear, I mean, by everyone's doing it like vinyl and stuff that's physical, just creates a whole different aspect to connecting with a brand, like you said, you know what I mean? Or connecting with an artist and wearing it and being like, this is what's up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a lot of respect for those guys that execute that well, because there's a lot of people out there with all sorts of different products.
Yep.
When I say products, as in like pushing, there might be musicians or there might be whatever, but they're putting out shit merch.
Totally.
And that's why I haven't done anything myself yet, because I'm like, I just want to do it properly.
100%.
Because no one wants to just slap a fucking logo on a stubby holder, because
100%.
it doesn't feel genuine.
Yeah, authentic. Exactly. It's like, it has to be authentic to what you're doing. And what they are doing is, bro, back when I was, 16, 17, 18, I was going to the city, going to similar things that they were at. They were out on, I knew who they were riding in the scene. They were older dudes. They were hanging around the most prolific people in that era. You know what I mean? So what they're talking about is a culture, and it's authentic to what they were doing. And that's why the merch has worked, and that's why their brand has worked, is because they went out and they did that for years before anyone knew, before any social media. They just did it to do it. You know?
Yeah. That's definitely something that you notice now with people, is that their social media, they're doing shit on there just for the sake of a story or
100%,
whatever,
bro.
right? When you really need to put in all the hard work, and the stories should be 1% of what you're actually doing. You know?
Yeah, exactly. Let the work speak for itself. Let your legacy speak for itself. You know what I mean? And the rest will come with that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your spiritual journey? We haven't said that yet.
Yeah.
But you've alluded to it. So I think a lot of people, I know that, get off their gear or whatever. They do sort of go down that path. So do you want to talk a little bit more about that? It's got to be deeper than just moving or removing yourself from Melbourne. Do you want to sort of break that down a bit for us?
Yeah, sure. So, the word spiritual gets fucking, freaks people out. You know what I mean?
But what else do you call it?
Oh, exactly. No. I agree with what you're saying. 100%. It is spiritual. It's like defining physical, emotional, spiritual. Things need to be categorized. But essentially, for me, it brought me a lot of understanding of a purpose higher than myself. Do you know what I mean? Got me out of worrying about things that society try to push on me, and understanding that I know why I'm here, and there are values and people that have lived before me that have shown codes and ways that I align with, being a way of living a happy life. So basically, how did it start? Bro, there's so many different sort of people that I look to, but essentially I got to a point where I was looking around and I'm like, there has to be more than this. Do you know what I mean? There has to be more than all the unhappy people I've seen, and people dying, and dudes going out and getting wasted and then going to work and, what you been up to, mate? Yeah, just working. And I'm like, nah, there's got to be a deeper meaning, you know what I mean? And there's got to be a reason why I went off the rails and all that sort of shit. And I think I've always just been looking for the deeper layers of what it is to be human, you know what I mean? So I guess it started with martial arts, and it started, with martial arts and reading and listening to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. So, I get like, I don't know if you've heard of Jocko Willink and dudes like that. And a lot of books and courses and I mean psychedelics as well. Like I was doing them a bit when I was younger and then sort of started getting introduced to psychedelic therapy. It's like a combination of things that are sort of just giving me a bit of an understanding of myself and a bit of peace of mind. Got introduced to meditation and it's like, what is that? Like I went to Sri Lanka when I was, I got back from that trip that I was telling you about when I started doing music and that. And I was like, all right, where are the people that seem like they're peaceful? Do you know what I mean? And not like pretending, not acting. They just seem grounded and like they've got, a bit of peace about the way that they live. And I started reading into places and research and stuff. And then, it was like India, Sri Lanka. So I went to Sri Lanka and, started getting introduced to it there. So like, I don't know if you've been there, but that's part of their culture, you know what I mean? And it's a part of a lot of cultures and it's something that we don't have in our culture at all. It's like you mentioned, as I said, you mentioned the word spiritual and it's like, ooh, what does that mean? And people are, really disconnected from the spirit of being a human. The indigenous aren't. Obviously, it's a massive part of their culture, but like sort of our Western culture, it is. It's like, you look back to the generations of going back, it's like 100 years ago in Ireland, there was civil wars and Irish people didn't even have food and they were being slaved and, you sort of, how are you going to have spirit during that time when you've been completely disconnected to it? So then a couple of generations later, stuff gets lost in translation when you don't have elders who are there to show you the way.
Totally.
So, went to Sri Lanka, got introduced to yoga and meditation there, right? And the way that what's helped me is being open to anything and not judging it and trying it. And if it works, sweet. If it doesn't, sweet. That's just, that's the way it goes for anything. So I went there, got introduced to yin yoga and meditation. And for the first time ever, I was sitting still and, I'm a hyperactive person by nature. And the first time I'd ever sat still and stretched deeply and not been moving around a million miles an hour, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And going to workshops and seminars where people are sitting and speaking authentically, what you were talking about before, speaking from the heart and not trying to act. I'd spent so much time around people who are acting hard and, even teachers who can't even communicate properly or be authentic. And this is people that are just genuinely there, speaking from the heart and trying to help each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
with no agenda.
No agenda. You know what I mean? It's just, this is a lineage that they've learnt, whatever it was, whether it's meditation, whether it's yoga, whether it's whatever it is. And these are things that have been written down. Like it's like a religion, I suppose. You know what I mean? There's all different types of religions. And these different types of religions have had their codes written down and people follow them. So sort of just being introduced to, like what it is to sort of walk that path, I suppose, you know what I mean? And be able to speak about what I've been through and then begin to sort of understand myself a bit more and start doing those practices, which then in time, literally in time, repeating them lead you to a place of I'd say peace or just being of a bit more whole than you used to be. You know what I mean?
And like I have tried meditation.
Yep.
It's fucking really hard.
Yep.
And that must be something, especially for someone like you said who's hyperactive.
Yep.
But it is possible for everybody to learn that, but it is hard work, isn't it?
For sure.
Sort of to get to that point.
Yeah, bro. And like some people, don't like it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't work for them. I mean, it's hard for me to agree with someone who says it doesn't work for them because, as I said, I was super hyperactive and couldn't sit still. What it taught me was to just sit still, literally just sitting still for a long period of time taught me how to channel my energy into my music, into training, into all these other things and not be running around going, and being, going out all the time. Yep. You know what I mean? It taught me to just slow down and have my mind, understand, okay, this is what you can channel that into. This is what you can channel that into, and have some awareness rather than just sort of spurting it out all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And if someone had have told you that when you were 15, you would have told them to fuck off.
100%, bro. Exactly. So what you said before, it's like you need life experience to be able to get to that point.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately the biggest essential for any young person or anyone, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I can only speak for myself, is training and exerting energy through physical training, bro.
Yeah.
Like that for me has been, for someone whose mind goes up and down and who has all this energy or whatever you want to say, training every day is what 100% has given me the backbone and spine. And I've spent a lot of time in low socioeconomic houses, do you know what I mean? In housing flats and with families that have no coin. And I've spent time in houses with millionaires who have heaps of money. And the biggest difference in those two places is obviously financially an opportunity, but health and focus on training and what that does for you. You know, like I know people who have come from low socioeconomic areas who've committed to just starting there at hard exercise every day, and then what that equals out to. All the books that I've read, all the people that I've looked into who I look up to as, you know, role models or whatever, who are successful. I'm not even talking financially, but they are financially successful. Train, right? Because it gets you the fuck out of bed and gets you moving towards what you want to move towards. You know, I get up in the morning and I put myself through suffering, and what can take me down after that? You know what I mean? After I put myself through that in the morning, the ice bath, what you're talking about, I don't want to do any of that. It's not like it feels good, but after I do that, I'm like, who can stop me now? Do you know what I mean? Like what job? I'm like, I'm not dreading going to work. I'm not dreading anything because that was shit. You know, like let's go and let's move towards these things and capitalize on them, you know?
Yeah, it's definitely you've won that mental battle from the start because you've already achieved something that most people don't do in the morning. So then, therefore, the rest of the day is not a challenge.
For sure. And it's like, it's not like, doing something that other people are doing. It's not like I'm comparing to anyone. That's not what it's about. You know what I mean? It is just like, what it is I've listened to people who are in their 50s and 60s who have said, this has worked for me. I can't explain why, but if you do it, you'll understand. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, sweet. As I said, I'll listen and I'll try it. If it works, I'll do it. If not. So I think trying a bunch of different things and then using them, seeing if they work, and then just experimenting. So for me, like you just said, putting myself through suffering first thing in the morning, and then, you feel better as well, bro.
Does it get easier though? Does it actually?
100%. It becomes routine. Like I think as men as well, we do need to move, and we do need to, like Joe Rogan posted something interesting. I can't remember exactly what it was a couple of months ago, but it was like he wonders if men are meant to endure suffering, because historically we've had to be out and hunting and and it's been fucking hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And if he feels like, he's like, I wonder if a lot of the mental health crisis is because men are just laying around and not sure what to do with their time and they feel inadequate. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying you have to be doing heaps of shit to feel adequate, but I just know from doing stuff like training and doing stuff that's hard, I just feel peace, bro.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Ultimately moving through that makes me feel peace. It gives me confidence. And then that just snowballs into your life. You know what I mean?
But yeah, totally, man. But it must be hard to balance that. And for a lot of people that are working their 9 to 5 or whatever, to still do all that stuff. But it's pretty important, I'm guessing what you're saying, is to take time to do that mental stuff and to also do the physical exercise, because that'll then in turn help the mental.
100%, bro. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, I don't want to be just rolling out of bed, going to work, doing my day, going home, watching TV and you know, having an average relationship with my missus and poking each other every now and again. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I just think, taking control of the present moment in the morning or whatever time it is, it doesn't have to be the morning, but for me that works to clear my mind, does open up your mind to being like, all right, what else do I want to do? It's like I'm working, but I've got this creative thing I'm going to work on and I'm working towards this. And, you know, I think, action and vision coupled together end up, snowballing. Like stuff just snowballs and good shit comes out of that. You know what I mean?
I think it's also a delicate balancing act because some people throw themselves into this stuff, I think, too deep, which can be detrimental to their health mentally and physically.
For sure, man. Yeah. Like, I mean, it wasn't like that from the start. It's taken, 4 or 5 years to get to this point. You know what I mean? But it started off, as I said, in Sri Lanka, curious. Okay, I want to change. There's people out there that are living in a certain way. How I know that I can, it's also self-belief a little bit of like, okay, maybe I can do that if I do some of these things. And then chipping away at that, okay, I'm going to take the courage to go down to a martial arts gym and sign up, even though you might feel anxious. Like I was messaging this kid the other day on Insta who, I can't remember how it came about, but he was like, oh, I don't want to go down to the gym. I'm too anxious. And, I don't want to sign up. And I'm like, it's taken the courage to take the step into that thing. And then you start there and it's like, okay, step onto the next thing. You start there, onto the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing. And then next thing you know, you're running downhill, with full speed. And obviously there's going to be ups and downs in life. There always is. But these things that you commit yourself to and these things that you put yourself through will, whether or not you can see it, they will strengthen your mind to a point that you didn't think was possible before. And I can say that from personal experience.
Yeah. And has this process and your journey made you sort of think about a higher power, a greater being, of that sort of thing? Like, do you put labels on that sort of stuff?
Yeah. So I don't have a specific religion or anything that I follow, but I think all religions have the same purpose. You know what I mean? So like, whether it be Buddha, Christianity, like Jesus, all these people, the way that I view what you're saying is like all of these people were living people, were people in real life back, who have lived lives and have lived exceptional lives in devotion to helping humanity. You know what I mean? So I just try and read all of those. I don't specifically, pigeonhole myself to one, but try and live in alignment with the morals and values that I accept from each of them. Like I was saying before, like looking at a lot of different places and taking parts from it and just seeing what you like. So, for example, how those religions go, this is the way. And, I had this preacher come up to me the other day and he's like, do you know God? Like, do you know Jesus? Up in my face. And I'm like, bro, that's not Jesus. You know what I mean? That's not what he's about. He wouldn't want you screaming in my face and trying to ram this down my throat. But it's like, taking all the lessons from each of those people and using them.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just like trying to live with the intention of being the best person that you can. You know what I mean? Of being kind to people who are less privileged than you are, being grateful for what you have in this fucking life. You know what I mean? Like from traveling, what we're talking about before, going and seeing countries, I've seen third world countries, people don't have food, people don't have a house. Do you know what I mean? It's like being aware of what you have and then being of service in some way to people that don't have what you have. You know what I mean? Like people get so caught up in material bullshit. You know what I mean? And I've been there as well, but to me, that's just not freedom. You know what I mean?
Totally. For a country like us that is very advanced in a lot of ways, the unbalance from the wealthy and the underprivileged is huge. Like I think a lot of people here have got a lot of money and will always be comfortable, and a lot of other people are really doing it tough, and because of whatever scenarios that not any fault of their own, maybe generations before them, and they're going to be starting off on the back foot, and it just doesn't seem kind of just, does it?
100%, bro. And it's like, when you're young, exactly what you're saying. You're like, you're in a low socioeconomic area. You're going to a school with everyone who's doing the same thing. You're eating food that is just dog shit that these rich companies are creating to full of shit, and you end up in an ecosystem of the exact same thing that's hard to escape from.
And
know what I mean?
Probably from no fault of your own. A lot of these people, it might not even be their parents, it might be their parents' parents
100%.
that sort of started this cyclical,
cycle.
Yeah.
But the thing is, legit, especially in this country, you can take control of your own life.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But the thing is like, you have to be aware of like, okay, everyone around me is doing this and I don't want that. And that is the most foreign thing ever. To go, I'm fucking 18 and everyone around me is fucked and doing drugs and drinking and whatever, and you've got to be the one to be like, I'm going to change that. You know what I mean? How do I do that? And how you do that is by outsourcing, mentors, reading, and committing to trusting that if you your actions in a different direction, that things will change and you can make that change,
Totally. There's two ways you can look at it, and I see this with some people that have not had their father figure in their life or whatever figure, maybe maternal or paternal, whatever.
Yep.
And some people go down the route of, well, my dad was a shit dad, so whatever, and then they've got that mindset.
100.
But you could go, all right, my dad was a shit dad, but I'm going to learn from that. I'm going to stop this cycle and I'm going to be the best dad I can be because I didn't have that opportunity.
100%.
And I've seen people, in my personal experience, I've seen mates go both sort of ways.
Yep.
But I think that's really important to take stock and think just because you don't have to be a product of your environment, you can make changes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And what's mad, if you're having, it's like when you're young and you're seeing that, it's like, you do have the worst dad in the world, and he's done all this shit to you and all that, but it's like something has happened to him where he hasn't had the opportunities for him to be able to have the awareness to be able to live a peaceful life and to be able to provide for you. And as fucked up as that is, it's sad, but exactly, you can be the one to be like, nah, I'm not going to, and I mean, time and time again, you hear stories of that's the case. You know what I mean? It's like you can take all of that wisdom, because it is wisdom. You've got people coming from, I've seen people in millionaire families and all that, and they're just floating around. You know what I mean? They don't have the wisdom of what that struggle can give you. So it's like take that and fucking run with it, and like you said, try and make the change.
Tell you what I think, man, is a bigger problem than I think booze and alcohol in our community. I think it's gambling, man. I think that would single-handedly ruin more families. That alcohol's obviously pretty bad.
For sure.
But I think, and the way that gambling is so normalised and fucking everywhere, that I think that is probably the most detrimental thing to like the family unit, for lack of a better fucking term.
Yeah, word. I haven't personally seen too much gambling, but I think, as you said, I think booze and gambling probably go hand in hand. Yeah. Have you experienced a lot of gambling?
Yeah, well, my family grew up as my grandfather was like an illegal bookie at a pub. So it's been part of my family for a long time.
Yep.
But I just think pokies are probably the worst.
Yep.
And you look around Melbourne, right? Now, every single big pokies venue is strategically placed near
a pub.
Like housing commission.
Oh, really?
But they're everywhere, and so they try to get people that are in a pretty vulnerable spot and get them early.
Yep.
And I think that it's just such a thing that we've got so deep into it now as Australians.
Yep.
That it's just part of our normal culture.
For sure.
And it shouldn't, like, it wasn't. In the 90s, there was no pokies.
Really?
Nah, man. Like, but maybe it's just a bit before your time.
Yeah.
There was no pokies. And then they brought that in the 90s, and now they're everywhere. And I think that's just fucking really cooked. You know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, literally, it's just literally capitalizing on vulnerable people like you just said.
And that's what I think with the races or the sports betting, it's bad, but I think the pokies is just they strategically place them, and I think I think a lot of people that don't have much, they're somewhere along the line their family might have some sort of gambling issues, and I think that's something that I think personally here is fucked.
Yeah, for sure.
It's shit house, man.
Yeah, I haven't even thought about that, man. Yeah, that is.
Like obviously booze, alcohol is a problem, but I think that's one that doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What I just find insane is they have an ad for gambling and then they go, call this line if you need help. It's like, why the fuck is that on fucking TV? For people who don't have the awareness to understand that they're literally being fucking manipulated.
Totally. If you're a recovering gambling addict and you just want to watch your team play footy, you're getting this shit rammed down your throat.
100%.
And that's not like, if you're a recovering drug user, you would remove yourself from those sort of situations. But I think it is so prevalent and in your face now that you can't remove yourself from it.
Exactly. Yeah. Every ad, every sporting thing that you go to, it's all over the pitch. It's all over the fucking everywhere. So it is. It's mad. I think people just once you realize that everywhere you go and everything that you look at, people are trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
There is a corporation that this is fact. This isn't conspiracy or anything. People are trying to sell you a product to make them more wealthy. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Whether it's in your little footy TV ad, or whether it's where you go down the street and you're looking at shit on the side of the train, like wherever it is, people are trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's just this consumerist culture that we live
for
in.
sure.
You know, even
Like you said before, people trying to capitalize on other people's weakness, you know, and this sounds real. Yeah, I don't want to be cynical or anything like that, but I just think it's important to have. There's so much great things in this world, and there's so much light in the world. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's like it's just good to have these conversations to bring people's awareness around what can be happening to them if they don't know.
Yeah, and I haven't done a total tree change and gone and moved totally into another state and lived in the bush, but I could understand how that would be bring you clarity mentally, because
100%.
You're not seeing these advertisements, you're not seeing all this shit rammed down your throat.
100%, bro. Yeah, and you can just plug into other sources of information that are telling you basically that that's what's going on, and from all different sources.
I noticed that on your podcast you had Jack Nagel on the first episode.
Yep.
And I've had him on here as well. Did you, because of the substance stuff, is that where you got sort of connected to him, or wanted to push him to more people?
Bro, how did I even meet him? How did I link up with him? I think my old lady actually met him. She works in mental health, and she met him years ago. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I ended up getting his contact and calling him, and I didn't even know that he was from the area or had similar links to the scene or anything like that.
Yep.
I just spoke to him on the phone and was like, I think we had a good connection and good conversation. He's a good dude, and yeah, that's just how it happened.
And you thought he'd be the good first person to kick it off and to think about sort of mental
Especially
health.
what was going on at that time for me, how I was saying people were passing away and I was on my own journey. I think it was good to sort of frame the podcast as it's not just anything. It's not just a drug and alcohol thing. It's not just a graph thing. It's, it's a variety of things.
Yeah. And because you are on this sort of journey to promote awareness and all this sort of stuff, it must be hard for you, because I guess you get a lot of people, and I'm guessing you DM back as many people as you can, but there'd be people who reach out to you like, mate, I'm struggling. Like, what do you tell all these sort of people? That must happen a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it does. But I think I just say just trust that this too will change. You know what I mean? I've been to the darkest places, you know what I mean? And it changes, like things will change, life changes. It's constantly moving and it's constantly evolving. And though you're in this situation where everything can seem completely fucked, it's like around the corner is something great, you know what I mean? And I just try to, ultimately I know that I have no control over what's going to happen in their life. I can only try and share some sort of, truth and hope in that moment. So I just try and say, that is the truest thing, is that time does change everything, and that the situation that you are in will change.
Everything's temporary.
Everything is temporary, and accompanied by your action and choosing what you choose to do in that time will ultimately, we'll have the outcome.
Yeah, you can't not make change and expect to have a different outcome.
100%, bro. Yeah.
This is something that you have to sort of come to your own conclusion.
Yeah, for sure.
And I believe kind of like you can't help someone who won't help themselves. Somebody has to make that conscious change.
Yeah.
But maybe just reaching out to you is the start for them to make a change.
100%. And if someone's looking at me doing that, just like I look at him doing that, and he looks at them doing that, and it's this ecosystem of that. You know what I mean? Of leading by example, bro.
Let's take it back to music for a bit. What do you're a bit younger than some of the other people we've had on.
Yep.
So what do you think the current sort of situation with Aussie hip hop is? It's gone through a lot of different sort of ways, a lot of different styles, a lot of different forms of popularity, but where do you think it's at the moment?
There's definitely a lot of music being made. There's a lot of different. There's probably the most variety of. Are we talking just hip hop?
Well, I think music in general, because I don't like to, genre specify stuff. But I think with more of a hip hop spiel, where do you think it's at?
I think there's a lot of music being made. I think there's a lot of talented people making music. I do think there's a bit of a poppy kind of thing happening. You know what I mean? Like a poppy.
And do you reckon that's like TikTok, Instagram
Yeah.
influenced?
Yeah. I mean, look at all the people who are blowing up in the UK and all that. These small songs that are kind of just like a chorus and whatever. But there's a lot of great stuff being made. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people getting their voices heard. But I do think, there's a lot of the same stuff sort of happening. I think it'd be good for people to sort of, but then again, it's like people are just telling their story in whatever way that they can.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's interesting when people say, and older people, probably older than me and my age, like, oh, there's no good music anymore. There is good music. You've got to fucking look for it, though.
Sure.
If you're turning on commercial radio, you're not going to hear anything
100%.
good. There's great music out there. There's all sorts of different music. You just got to dig for it.
Yeah. I personally resonated so much with the soul of Aussie hip hop. You know what I mean? Which is like, you listen to a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the culture that was being spoken about when I was growing up, and it's a lot of positive shit. You know what I mean? It's a lot of like, you know, mind expanding perspectives, stories, and I think that's definitely going away right now in this time.
Yep.
It's more like, you know, I'm a mad cunt and look at me, I drink piss, and, you know, I've got a hire car that I hired in the background. But in the background, there still is people doing stuff with that sort of heart and soul, which I think made Aussie hip hop so unique, you know?
Yeah, it's really, I think Melbourne Aussie hip hop or Melbourne hip hop.
Yep.
It has not gone down the route that a lot of the other sort of Queensland, New South Wales stuff has gone.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. The more, you mean underground-wise or?
Underground-wise, and maybe a little bit more focused on traditional hip-hop when say like with the graffiti and the, you know, that those kind of four elements sort of basis to it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what do you think?
I think that it's cool that Melbourne has its own spin on it.
Yeah.
But the drill UK kind of influence is definitely making things a lot more staunch and hectic.
Yeah.
But those guys are being influenced by the American trap sort of thing.
100%.
So it's all kind of like, we're in a funny spot.
But it's a cycle, man, as you said. You know what I mean? It'll just go around and it'll die out and it'll come back. I think, bars is ultimately what hip hop's about.
Yep.
And you can see that it's sort of starting to come back around to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We did lose that in hip hop as a whole musical movement. Yep. We did lose that about 5 or 6 years ago with the Mumble thing, and then people weren't even really... But now it's come back around again, so lyrics are now becoming important.
For sure. Yeah, it's mad. It's good to see.
What about with pushing yourself as an emerging kind of artist?
Yep.
That must be hard. Like, obviously, the internet's a great way to push your stuff, but it's got to be more than that because there's so much shit out there. You've got to make sure... Like, how do you go about putting yourself ahead of the rest?
Yeah. Man, I just try to spread it the best that I can. You know what I mean? Like, like I make the art, I finish the project, and then I release it to the best of my capability. And whoever, to be honest, like at this point, I'm like, I have so much other stuff going on in my life. I'm like, I hope people listen to it. I want them to listen to it. And if they listen to it and pass it on to a friend, that's a great thing. And if it, you know, they enjoy it, that's great. But I don't want to get lost in making the art and then being like, I need to just hammer this thing and fucking, you know, go a million miles an hour trying to get it out there. It's like, I just trust that.
Spamming people.
Yeah. Like, you know, and I'll send it to my mates and whatever, and put it on my platform, obviously. But I just think, the people who are meant to listen to it are going to listen to it, and hopefully they pass it on. And like I'm not too up to date with, like I don't have TikTok and those other ways of getting it out there. Like I'll email people that are in my list and I'll post it to the fan base that I have, and they'll listen to it and they'll pass it on just like they probably listen to it. You know what I mean?
So to keep the positive vibes going, who are some artists that you think people like deserve a shout out that are a bit slept on at the moment? Who do you think that people watching this should go check it out? You know what I mean?
Yep. Underground artists.
Yeah, just people you think they're a little bit that deserve a little bit of love.
Yep. I think my best mate Vacay is a great rapper. Smack in Brisbane, Nurture. Who else?
Well, that's enough. But it's a few people for people to check out.
Yeah, those three. I mean, there is so many good unheard artists. I mean, what's his name actually? There's this one dude I haven't listened to for a while. from Perth, I think it is. What's his name? I'll send it to you. And we'll put him in the link. Put him in the link. Yeah, Warps. His name's Warps, bro. Warpser.
Okay.
Warpser. One of the best lyricists I've heard in Australia. He's dope.
Because it is really hard. You can put out music. You can put your art out there.
Yep.
But realistically, if people are going to consume it or not, it's a tough one,
sure.
man. And I guess for a lot of young artists, it must be kind of soul destroying for them to put all their time and effort and, you know, life stories into something that, you know, essentially Aussie hip hop has a pretty small market.
For sure. And it's hard to build a fan base to that size. But I mean, that's where, again, it comes back to like, why are you creating it? You know what I mean? Are you creating it to express? Are you searching for that? Like, I need are you searching for that? Or could you just be happy with the small 1, 2, 10, 20, 100 people listening to your music, 1,000, 2,000. You know, I've got 2,000 people listening to my music at a time. I'm fucking can't believe that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think creating a good music and being consistent over time, you'll create a fan base and people will listen to it if it's good. If it's good music.
Consistency is the thing, isn't it? Like,
sure.
you can't just drop a song here and there and think that you're going to build a fan base.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, again, be realistic with the fact that life has so many twists and turns, like we were talking about before, and you don't know what's around the corner. And if you can't make shit for a bit, it is what it is. But just come back to it and be consistent.
Let's go back to the mixtape that you just dropped.
Yep.
You've got your new project coming up next year, which
Yep.
you've sort of touched on. But the mixtape that you've dropped, what are some highlights from that, or some people that you've said you've got a lot of features on there?
Yep.
Like, who was someone that you really wanted to work with, and it all kind of came together?
Yeah. Man, I just love the mixtape because it's such an important period of my life from then till now, from that first album till this mixtape, because that album was writing stories from that time that I was talking to you about, and then this mixtape is sort of a lot about that journey that we've spoken about, and then getting to this point. So, yeah, I mean, Casper Chaos is on the mixtape a lot in a few songs. She's my favorite female MC in Australia. Like, she's not released any music on her own. She's only ever featured on songs of mine, which, you know, I've tried to push her to release her own music, but she's such a weapon. I don't know if you've listened to any songs with her on it, but she's a beast. Yeah, Vacay's on Above the Clouds. And who else is on it? I think that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, bro, the mixtape is just versatile. There's different every song's completely different, you know what I mean? And they're all telling stories and communicating with the listener directly. Like, there's drum and bass on there, there's sort of drilly, trap, harder beats, there's boom bap.
Do you think it's important to showcase that diversity?
I think so. Yeah, I think, man, I love spitting all over different types of stuff. But then again, some people have styles that they go for, you know what I mean? Where they go for the one style. But I love, bro, that's the thing. I don't just listen to hip hop. I listen to all different types, every type of genre. And I have my whole life, you know what I mean? That's why I like making different songs and collaborating with different people. Like, some of those songs are recorded all over the world. Like, Then Till Now, that producer is from Portugal. He reached out to me, and this is the beauty of the internet. Like you said at the start of the episode, he reached out to me because he saw Summer Breeze. Then he sent me this beat. I flew to Portugal and ended up going to his hometown and recording with him and shooting a music video in the mountains of Portugal. And like, yeah, the amount of the journey in this mixtape is of what I've gone through recording it as well, let alone just the stories. Like Bliss, I went to Bristol in the UK because it's the home of drum and bass and a lot of dub, you know, speaker music. A lot of Jamaican culture and stuff influenced there. And yeah, worked with Hot Steppers, Zach Harkavy and dude Ickle, real good producers. And yeah, went there and worked with them in that studio and a lot of live instruments happening. And yeah, it's real inspiring.
And I'm sure that none of this stuff would happen if you're still on the gear.
Bro, exactly. You know, it's like, yeah, like what we were saying, it's like there's so much potential in every person if you can just find something to channel your time and energy into. You know what I mean?
So what have you got coming up in 2024? This will be we've just ticked over to 2024 now.
Yep, just about,
So what have you got in store? You've mentioned you've got the full-length studio album with Vacay.
Yep.
What else have you got coming up, man?
Yeah. So we're releasing that early next year. So we'll be...
This year. This is going to be this year.
Sorry,
now.
this year. Yeah. Sorry, Buzz. We're releasing that album in 2020 this year. So we'll probably just start periodically rolling them out.
Yep.
And we're going to have some mad videos. Some of the... I'll send you some of the stuff to listen to after this episode. I'm really happy with it. And we'll be doing some shows. I've got a festival I'm doing in March. I'm going to be doing a show in early this year in Melbourne, and going to be doing a few shows. And then once we release the album, we're going to do a tour up the East Coast. So
a lot happening, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And are you going to be doing more of your mindfulness stuff and all that sort of thing? Obviously, personally, but are you going to be doing that like in more of like a mental way?
For sure.
That's where I could see it sort of going.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I got a job pretty much speaking, bro, and doing workshops and going around to different schools and companies. And that's what I want to do is as well as the music's great, and that's a passion and a hobby, but also the passion is just communicating and trying to help guide people into the right direction, you know what I mean? So yeah, both those and my work is moving towards that sort of pathway and just continuing to hammer, bro. And
man, I'm sure you'll kill it at that because I can tell how passionate you are about it. Do you want to give a little shout out to anybody, or actually before we do that, do you want someone who might be struggling, what do you tell them to do? Someone who might have been 16 years old, what would you sort of tell them to do if they might be substance issues or just in a bit of a fucking rut?
Yep. So, all right, it doesn't matter if you have grown up for 16, 17, 18 years around an environment and a family that are living in a certain way. If you are around substances and you're feeling shit and you can see that your family and that are doing the same thing, you need to rewrite your life. Do you know what I mean? So seeking help is the first thing, I think, right? Yep. Reaching out and communicating with someone who's grounded and someone that you look up to, whether it's a therapist or a mentor or a counselor or whatever. That's one thing. Training. I can only speak, I'm a man, so I can only speak to young men from my experience, but training, I think, is the most essential thing for us to do as a species.
Just physical stuff.
Physical exercise. Martial arts is what gave me not confidence out on the street to be like, I can whatever. Just literally what that did to my mind over time is, unexplainable. So reaching out and speaking to someone, training, signing up somewhere like martial arts, whatever it'll be. Jiu-jitsu is great and Muay Thai is great as well. Mm-hmm. And the community that you'll meet around that. Reading and, gaining knowledge through, it's so easy to sit and just scroll on the phone and waste time doing that. I think, like what you said with printing merch, it's a similar situation. Getting off technology and having time out in nature and reading, books of people who have literally devoted their lives to helping people like you change. So right now I'll mention a book called, the author's Jocko Willink, and it's Extreme Ownership. And he has podcasts as well. He's one of the big game changers for me of just literally pinpointing 10 key codes for ways to live. Mm-hmm. So Jocko Willink, obviously Joe Rogan's massive, people that he interviews. You can just go through there and look at all different sorts of people who are leading good lives. Parts of David Goggins' books are great for mindset, and podcasts by them as well. Starting to really change your ecosystem from being negative, and I'm not judging the people, whatever people are in your life but if you can see that they're self-destructive, start walking towards an ecosystem of people who are, it's not positive, playful. It's like, okay, but more of a whole way of living, you know what I mean? And a stronger way of living. Mm-hmm. Books, and yeah, just faith, man. Like what you said before. I mean, it's hard to say right now. I wouldn't say religious. You know what I mean? Like, I couldn't really speak to religious. I'll try and articulate what I'm going to try and say. I suppose that'd just go with reading.
Yep.
But yeah, another thing is spending time alone. I think I went from such a constant people around me all the time, and as you said, everything's coming into your mind and you're being sold stuff constantly, and just standing away from that and taking time in solitude to be able to think and train and read, whatever. I don't know what it does. I'm not a scientist, you know what I mean? But I just know that it definitely changes something.
Awesome.
So yeah, those are a couple of things. And just trust that things will change. If you're in a bad situation, if you act on it, you can change your life. There's no doubt about it.
Man, you've inspired me to get out there and do some more physical exercise, and I'm taking on board. It's hard. You've got a very infectious personality. It's hard for me to not sit here and not be inspired. So
Thanks,
I'm
bro.
sure you've got a lot of awesome stuff coming up this year and in the future. So, Dooz, thanks for coming, man.
Appreciate it, brother. I appreciate you having me, and I appreciate you doing this podcast and inspiring so many people to do art and to do whatever it is. That's
what it's all about, man. We're a lot of us are doing stuff like this for art or for whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
For the culture.
For the culture, yeah.
And just people saying that they dig it is awesome.
Yeah, bro. Appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
3000.